Right, I think we should start then, and then anyone who joins late can just hop on whenever. So welcome to today's session. So this is all about sort of where do I start navigating your career as a new graduate. So many of you might have graduated in either the summer or winter graduations and kind of trying to figure out what next. So this is sort of a session aimed at you guys. So just to introduce ourselves, my name's Sonia Wotton. I'm the graduate support intern at the University of Leeds Career Service. I graduated in summer. I studied law at the University of Leeds, and my job is basically helping everything with graduates, so running different graduate events, writing the newsletters, and just being there to support graduates in whatever they need.
Yeah, and my name's Tom Davis. I'm Graduate Employability Officer at the Career Service, so I work with Sonia. I coordinate and deliver activity for graduates and final years with the help of Sonia and various other colleagues. So yeah, I will be off camera and off mic while Sonia delivers sort of the main bit of the session, and I'll be on to facilitate the Q&A afterwards and join in with any advice I can there. And on that note, as Natalie has put into the chat, you can submit questions throughout the webinar at the Q&A button on the top of your screen. So if you have got any questions during this session, do just drop them in there, or you'll have the opportunity at the end. But I'll take myself off camera for now and hand back to Sonia.
Cool, thank you. So first, just quickly running through today's session, so what you can expect from today. So we'll be reflecting on what to do when potentially your strategy so far hasn't gone to plan, and then from that, what your next steps could be. For example, reframing the work that you've already done, looking at your experiences so far and any skills that you have, and then moving on to looking at employers and maybe what they're looking for. And then just dealing with rejection and building that confidence back up if you have been rejected quite a few times, as I'm sure many of you have, as it's quite a common thing that happens with graduates. Yeah. So before we sort of get into the content that I just outlined, I just wanted to quickly highlight the graduate outcome survey to you. So the graduate outcome survey is a survey that you'll fill out 15 months after you've graduated. They'll email you, you see the blue link there. So that's the email that it will come from. And I think you also do get like text messages and stuff like that for you to fill out this survey. And it basically helps so they'll ask you sort of what you've been up to since you've graduated and how your degree has helped you along the way. And then any sort of feedback you give is then used by the university to help students after you have a better experience at university. So if you do get an email from these, from this email 15 months after you graduated, please do fill it out, as it is really helpful for yourself to give feedback and also for the university to improve. And I just wanted to have a little kind of get a feeling of where everyone's at during this session. So if everyone could just go on the chat and put in either A, B, or C for which of these most accurately describe how you are feeling in terms of your job search at the moment. So are you A, feeling confident, B, currently applying but not having much luck, or C, not sure where to start? So if you want to just either like the one of them that Natalie's put in the chat for you, or type it in. So we've got lots of B's coming through. Yep, B's and C's, not many A's. I mean, I didn't really think there would be, as this is a session to help with your career search. Yeah, so I think most people are sort of on the same wavelength of sort of B, currently applying but struggling at the moment, which is mainly sort of who this session is aimed at. So let's get into it. So first of all, we're going to look at what to do if your strategy hasn't gone to plan. And I think the main part of this is reflecting on maybe what hasn't worked, what has worked, and seeing how we can help from there. So I think taking some time to reflect. So I've got a few bullet points here of potential reasons of why your strategy might have not gone to plan so far. This isn't obviously the whole list, but maybe a few common reasons as to why, specifically for graduates, it hasn't sort of been working yet. So first of all, feeling uncertain about your future steps. A lot of people when they finish university don't particularly know what they want to do next. And I think you look at so many different grad schemes and different jobs you can apply for, and there's almost so much that it gets kind of overwhelming. And I think when you're stuck on what you want to do after university, you're not quite sure what career path you want, you end up getting lost in the job search, and then your applications might not feel as passionate and specific for the role because you're not quite sure if it is the career that you want to get into, and therefore your applications might not come across as motivated. So that could be one reason as to why your strategy sort of hasn't been working so far. I think something from then you can take is giving something a go. And I know that's quite an annoying one to say, but you won't know until you try something. Maybe starting one job that you might not be that keen on, and you might not think, well, I really want this job. But if you start there, that maybe when you start working in that job, you can think, oh, okay, I really like this aspect of the job, but I don't quite enjoy this aspect of the job. And from then, you can start narrowing down your job search as you go. Um, because the first job you have after university doesn't have to be, and usually isn't, the career that you go into, or doesn't have to be directly, exactly what you want. It's just your first job. And then from there, you can sort of filter out what you like, what you don't like, and go from there. I think another one is, which is quite common with graduates as to why maybe your job search so far hasn't been what you were hoping for, is due to quantity over quality of applications. We get a lot of graduates asking, how many applications should I be sending off? I've sent 50 applications off and nobody's got back to me. And I can understand why you want to send off as many applications as possible, because obviously there's a mindset of the more you send out, the more likely somebody is to get back to you. But I think one thing at the career service we really like to emphasize is tailoring every application to the job description, really spending that time working on the application. The quality, I would say, definitely over quantity, in terms of look at the job description, look at your CV, or look at the application questions and tailor it specifically for that application. And it's worth spending that time doing it, because it's so obvious to an employer if you've spent the time reading the job description and tailoring your application or your CV or your cover letter specifically to that job role. Um, Another one, there's potential for graduates as to why your strategy might not be working, is you might be a little bit too ambitious. I think, you might see these amazing sort of grade 6 or 7 jobs, which you might be really keen for and might really enjoy. But I think realizing that, as a graduate, looking at especially sort of entry level 3 and 4 jobs is sort of where you'll mostly be aiming for. Of course, if you've graduated from a master's or a PhD, it would change. But sort of an undergraduate, like having finished your undergraduate degree, then looking at like level 3, level 4, entry level jobs, looking at graduate roles, as opposed to graduate schemes, which you can also apply for. So those sorts of jobs are sort of more likely to take on a recent grad. And then finally, another one which potentially graduates might struggle with is not applying for the right jobs. Um, I think a lot of people don't realize how much you can do with your degree. So if you aren't sure exactly what you want to do, and let's say you've studied law, because that's what I studied, but you don't actually want a career in law, um, I think it's difficult to know what else you can do. I think you think, oh, okay, well, if not law, then I have no idea what else I can go into. So this link here on the screen is on Prospects, and Prospects is a really great website. As if you Natalie's just put it in the chat there, which you can have a look at, and you can literally choose the degree that you studied, and they give you a long list of recommendations of other jobs that you can go into, which I find really useful. So just doing that research, expanding your thinking as to what else you could go into. It doesn't have to be related to your degree if you don't want it to be. Okay, moving on. So from that, so after you've had a bit of time to reflect on potentially what hasn't worked, I think the next best step is to think forward. So think what you can do next to hopefully be successful in your career search from now. So first of all, don't focus on the negatives. I know that's really difficult to say, because the more rejection that you get, the more disheartened that you obviously become, as is human nature. But don't focus on the negatives, focus on what you can learn so far from your experience. In the same vein, don't compare yourself to others. Once again, a lot easier said than done. But everybody is on their own path. Everyone has their own journeys. If you study medicine, it's quite a clear path into your F1, your F2, your training. But if you study a degree, then you think, I actually don't want to do, I don't want a career in maths. If you've studied maths, then you'll have very different journeys. Um, and I think one thing you could do is ask for feedback for any interviews that you've had or any assessment centres that you've been a part of. Um, Even if they don't sort of say, oh, you could get feedback from us, it's worth sending an email and just being like, hey, like I would really appreciate some feedback on my interview as I would like to improve for next time. And worst comes to worst, they don't reply, at least you've asked. There's no harm in sending a message and reaching out, especially if you've done an assessment centre, as you are further along a process of a graduate scheme at that point, potentially setting up a phone call to discuss how you could improve. And what I also wanted to mention is trying not to feel disheartened, as there are still plenty to apply for. I know, especially if you're looking at graduate schemes, which some of you may be, a lot of people think that come December, most graduate schemes have gone. That is not true. A lot of graduate schemes have gone for larger companies, but there are a lot of other smaller companies that are still recruiting for graduate schemes now. Alternatively, you don't have to go for a grad scheme. Let's say you've applied for grad schemes and not been successful. There are lots of graduate roles that you can apply for. And later on in the session, I'll highlight a few that I've just found for this session just to show you an example of some graduate schemes. Sorry, not graduate schemes, graduate roles. Um, and yeah, just wanted to highlight a few places you could look. So, for example, My Career. If you go on My Career and go on Find Vacancies, you can tailor your job search to, for example, location, salary, stuff like that. You can go on Prospects or Target Jobs and start having a look at a range of different jobs and roles that you can apply for. And then in terms of next steps, you can also utilize the career service. So just quickly whiz through everything that career service can offer, as it is a great place to start if you're unsure or if you're not sure why applications are going well. So for example, you can book a one-to-one appointment with a careers advisor. So if you are applying for a job and want someone to look over your application or look over your CV or look over your cover letter, you can book a one-to-one appointment with one of our careers advisors, and they will look at your job description, they will look at your application, see how well you've tailored it to the job description, and just give you some useful feedback. Equally, if you don't have a job to apply for yet, but you have applied for some in the past, then you could bring in your previous application with the job description and maybe have a look at what you could have done better for the future. As well as this, we have CV and cover letter checkers on My Career. So that's through Career Set. And for a graduate, your graduate code would be Leeds Grad. So if you go on Career Set, it will then ask you to have a code, and that's the code. So on this, it's an AI tool to look over your CV, look over your cover letter. Doesn't mean you can't still come in and bring in those CVs and cover letters for our advisors to check. It's just like a first sort of point of call that you could do. And then we've just launched a Review My LinkedIn, which is also on My Career. And as it says in the name, this you can sort of get that to check your LinkedIn profile and give you feedback on that as well. So that's also a cool one to start having a look at, as this is quite new for us. And then on My Career, we also have stuff like Practice Interviewer. So you can, as it says, go and practice in different interview questions online. So you don't have to come in for that if you don't want. We also have LinkedIn Learning, which you can sign up for. So this is lots of different courses, online courses ranging from a few hours to like 15 hours that you can break up into different chunks, and you can practice stuff like coding or project management or Excel. I think now there's like over 20,000 courses I think there is on LinkedIn Learning at the moment. And then if you complete a course, you can get a certificate and it can be uploaded straight to your LinkedIn profile. Having a look at the career services blog as well, we have lots of different stories coming from different alumni, different graduates, students, sort of everything that's going on in the career service, such as currently our Discovery Weeks, which you know about as you are joining our first Discovery Week session, can all be found on the blog as well. And then finally, we have the graduate newsletter, which you'll get a newsletter once a fortnight. with different opportunities and everything that's going on for graduates at the moment, you'll find on there. Yeah, okay. Okay, so now I've gone through sort of what the career service can help you with. Let's get back onto what you can do to help yourself. So, reframing your work that you've already done. So, I know you can look back on your work and think, oh, this didn't go as well, this didn't go as well, and look at it quite negatively, but you need to try and look at the positive aspects as well. So, what has gone well for you so far? And I think it's worth thinking about what you enjoy, what you're good at, parts of application that have gone well, part of interviews that you feel have gone well. Do you feel like you were quite confident with your answers? Do you think you used a strong STAR method to answer any questions in an interview? And list them because I think it's I mean I like a good list, but it will show you that there is a lot of positive that comes from your career journey search, not just negatives that you can take from it. So I think working from your feedback you've received is a really good one. So perhaps you need more help in psychometric tests, which you can practice on My Career. So we have a psychometric practice test section, so you can also use that, but any other ones as well. So list your strengths as well as your as well as thinking of what you can improve on. And if you're not sure, ask your friends, ask your family. Come into the career service, do a practice mock interview with us, and then you can get feedback. And then I think this is an important one for your future applications, which is including all of your experiences in your applications. So a lot of people think that it's just sort of the relevant experience which employers are looking for, specifically just like jobs you've had. But there is such a variety of things that you can include on an application. Employers are looking for the person, not just the worker. So they want someone that they can get on with in the office and are quite well rounded. So have you had any part-time jobs? Whether that is working in a cafe, working at a bar, any part-time experience is still good experience that you've had. Have you taken part in any volunteering in your free time or when you were a student at university? I think here is a good time to just say that you can also sign up for volunteering positions with the university. And my colleague Natalie can put the form for that in the chat. So if you would like to build up your volunteering experience, then that is potentially one way of doing it. Yeah, so that's in the chat now, so you can always have a look at that. So maybe if you're thinking, oh, I would actually love to have a bit of volunteering experience that I can add to my CV, then have a look at that form in the chat. And then, for example, as a student, were you in any societies? Were you either a part of the society or were you maybe a committee member for a society? That's great to put down on your CV as it shows collaboration, leadership, commitment. And then any other clubs and hobbies that you may have is all really relevant to include on a CV or a job application. And then I also wanted to stress that in terms of part-time work, it doesn't have to be relevant to your job specifically. It's all about transferable skills such as listed here: organisation, teamwork, public speaking, problem solving. For example, if you worked in retail, you had to have lots of customer service skills and communication skills and work well as a team. And it's just about how you draw out those transferable skills and how you phrase them within an application. And if you're ever struggling with that, please book a one-to-one appointment. Our careers advisors are really good at helping reframe your experiences to make them relevant to the applications that you're making. And so now I'd just like to go on to sort of considering what employers are looking for. So start by doing quite a good bit of research for every job that you do. I know it's easy to just sort of go, oh, like I'll just fill it out and send it off. But it really does show when you've put in the research. So start by looking at the company's website. Have a look at their social medias. For example, do they have LinkedIn? Do they have Instagram? Different social medias that they might have. Obviously, spend quite a lot of time reading the job description so that you understand the job and the role that they're looking for, so that you can make your application as similar to what they're looking for as you can. During your research, especially on the company's website, have a look for the company's values. There tends to be quite often a question about their values and how you might align to them, especially in an interview. So the interviewer might go, like, how do you think that you align to our company's values, and how would they align with yours? Um, so make sure that you sort of know what their values are, and equally, you might have a look at their values and actually think this actually isn't for me, and that might eliminate a job for you. Sort of like bottlenecks down exactly what kind of job you're looking for if you're not sure. And on that note as well, I was going to say, during your research of the company, have a look at to see if they've got any blogs or any podcasts, because it shows you've done more in-depth research, and then you can include that on your application. For example, you could draw out a specific section of a podcast that you listen to for a company and include that in your application and say, oh, like this aspect of this podcast really interested me, and this is why I'm applying for this role, because I think that my values really align in this way, and you can sort of like really show in your applications that you've done the research. And finally, if you feel that you don't have the right experiences or skills developed for the job application, for the job role in the application, there is different ways to develop those skills. You could, like I said, sign up for volunteering in your free time, potentially maybe on a Saturday if you have Saturdays free. Sign up for LinkedIn Learning, because you can choose specific skills to develop on LinkedIn Learning. And like I said, watch the podcasts, watch different podcasts or blogs, and then potentially like join a club. As Leeds, as if you're a new graduate from Leeds University, you can still be a part of the societies. So that could also be an option if you are still in Leeds. And then I think it's just really important to, stress that keeping a positive mindset is really important. You're not alone in trying to find a job. I know it feels like a very isolating thing because you sort of sat. I think it's worth noting that a lot of graduates, especially, are in the same situation as you. And it is a lot harder than people think to get a job, especially with the amount of people that you're probably competing with, especially if it's a graduate scheme. Um, And there's also, no right way of having a career. I think I said this earlier. You probably won't go into the job that you want to begin with, or that if you have this dream job in your head, you might take you a while to get there, or you might not know what you want to do. And then it's a case of trying out different things and seeing what you enjoy, seeing what you don't. Um, so trying not to limit yourself to specific jobs, but maybe giving something a go that you might not have thought of done. Go on Prospect, see what other jobs they recommend you apply for with someone from your specific degree. Um, yeah, and if you're ever struggling with, feeling a bit low and like you not quite sure where to go from here and just feeling a bit disheartened, please come to the career service. The career service is here to help at every stage of the journey, from you not having a clue what you want to do, come in and book a careers guidance appointment and we can help you from your application, your interview, your assessment centre. We also run mock assessment centre sessions at the career service. So hopefully that will make you feel a little bit less alone, as we are here to help at every stage of the journey. So please do reach out if you're feeling that way. And leading on from that, I think it's worth noting how to deal with rejection, because the more rejections you face from job applications, the harder it is to take. But don't take it personally. It's nothing. It's not a reflection of you. You are competing with so many different people with so many different experiences, and you don't particularly know what the employers are looking for because it's quite hard to gauge it. And I think trying to reframe your perspective from, oh, like I've been rejected, oh, again, like this is like a failure mentality. Like it's just an opportunity to learn from it. Ask feedback. It's good practice. I think I found when I was getting rejected from interviews, I started viewing interviews as an option to practice rather than to get the job. So I had this mindset of, right, I'm just going to do this interview and just give it a go and learn my STAR method and build my confidence up, especially with interviews. I think it's a lot of it is to do with confidence and practice, which is why I'm stressing that you can book a mock practice interview with the career service, for example, to build up your confidence. And yeah, I think rejection is a good opportunity to build up your confidence and resilience. I think the more, like, let's say you get rejected and you get rejected, let's say 5 or 6 times, but you bounce back every time. I think you're proving to yourself that you can keep going, and eventually you will get something. It's just about trying and keep going. But know that the career services help, and then we can help you look in the right places, and with the applications. And here I kind of just wanted to highlight a few different opportunities for graduates. So I'd like to say that as a graduate, you have a slight, what's the word, like a slight better chance of getting certain jobs because, for example, final year students, they're still students until June. Well, right now you can apply for jobs that students won't be able to apply for yet. So that sort of lowers your competition. So for example, this job here, I know it's quite a unique job opportunity that might not be for everybody, but it's just to show you the breadth and sort of like range of jobs you can apply for. So this one is a seabird research officer. I just want to show, for example, this one, the application closes on the 31st of January. So this is something that other graduates would be applying for, but a student wouldn't be applying for. It's a full-time job. It's a fixed-term contract for 7 months. So, you don't, so this demonstrates that it's just a job for a certain amount of time, and then you can build up experience that adds something to the CV, and then from then maybe go on to get a job in maybe a area that you are looking for. And the next one is a client project manager for the British Library. So once again, the application deadline for this is at the start of February. Different location. So here we've got a fixed term until July 2026. So once again, this is a fixed term contract. So in the meantime, so if you, let's say you work for a job that is until July 2026, this gives you plenty of time to figure out your next steps, whether maybe you then after that decide you want to go into further education, potentially do a master's, or you from this job learn that actually you really want to go into communications. So I think a fixed term contract has that sort of positive to it, that you're not committing to it. You have a certain amount of time, and then you've basically given yourself a bit more time to figure out what you want to do next. So it might be a good option for those that really aren't sure what they want to do yet. And then finally, just to give a taster, this one is a music assistant at Soft Touch Studios. Once again, deadline is mid-February. This is a part-time job, so there's also no harm in taking a part-time job for now while you're still searching for jobs. If anything, it might give you a good balance of earning a bit of money, but then also having that time to keep applying for jobs that you might be more interested in. This isn't obviously all the jobs that are out there. I just wanted to give a variety of jobs that we have on offer on like through the My Career website, which is where I have taken these jobs from. So please do have a look on My Career, go and find vacancies. You'll find these 3 jobs there if any of them do strike your fancy, and plenty more. So I just want to show you that there are still jobs out there to apply for. Obviously these are part-time and fixed term, but there's others there as well. So I just wanted to give you a taster. And finally, before we go on to Q&A, so obviously this event that you're attending today is part of our Discovery Weeks. Our Discovery Weeks run up until March. Every week is focused on a different theme. So we have different themes such as Public Sector Week and Sustainability Week, and different weeks for like international students working in the UK or students who want to work abroad. So every week's a different week, and we have graduate sessions every single week. And as graduates, you are also welcome to join any session that you'd like. You don't have to limit yourself to just the graduate sessions. So please do have a look, sign up for any events that might feel useful to you. Yeah, and that is about it from me. I would then like to move on to Q&A now.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for that, Sonia, and hope everyone found that useful. Loads of sort of really relevant and great advice there from someone who, as Sonia mentioned at the start, a few of you might have missed, someone who graduated in the summer, and so this time last year was sort of either in the same position as you if you're a final year student, or recently in the same position if you're a graduate. But yeah, as Sonia mentioned, we'll now move on to the Q&A. As Natalie has been dropping in throughout the session, there is a Q&A thing at the top of your screen if you want to submit any questions. We've had a couple through already, so we will start with those. And then we'll move on to a couple that were pre-submitted, but do keep contributing any others you have. But we'll start first question with from Ella. And the question is there a time limit on past experiences? And does a job from 3 years ago become less valid or relevant because it isn't recent? Do you have any thoughts on that one, Sonia?
Um, I I don't see why it still wouldn't be relevant. You've still had the experience and developed skills from that. So even if the job was 3 years ago, uh, please do include it on your CV. It still shows you can still talk about it. You can still talk about the skills that you got from it, um, and yeah, the experience that you gained. So I wouldn't say it's less relevant just because you had that job a few years ago. It still counts, and you still develop those skills.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I think if you've got experience, you've got experience. You also, depending on, with a CV, obviously you tend to list the skills under when you did the job, so it might be a bit clearer that, when you got that experience. But if it's more of like an application or you're matching specific skills against specific experiences in a job application, just talk about the experiences. Don't try and caveat it by saying, I've got copywriting experience. It was from a job 3 years ago. Don't try to just be confident and say you've got that experience. And likewise, in an interview, you can just say, yeah, when I worked at company X, I developed skill Y, and just talk about that. But yeah, it's still relevant. I think something that some students, graduates, and people generally probably don't do is expand their horizons as much. So I definitely encourage you to, yeah, include everything that's relevant, really. So we've got another question as well from Alice. So thanks for dropping your questions in, Ella. As no one else has, we'll answer both of yours. So I think this links back to the thing you mentioned, Sonia, about getting feedback from employers. So she said, how do we know what to improve on when so many companies specify they cannot provide feedback or individual reasons why you've been rejected? Have you got any thoughts on that? I can take it if not.
I would say like the one thing if you're really struggling, is you could book a one-to-one appointment with the career service, and we can have a look at your applications, um, and then we can provide you feedback that we think, we could have a look at a past application, and then maybe I could have a look from that and go like, oh, maybe if you'd have said this or done this a bit differently, then that might have been the reason as to why you weren't successful and somebody else was. In the same vein of in an interview, we could do a mock interview with you and we could provide you feedback. So that's one way of getting feedback, if the company themselves won't provide you with it.
Yeah, I think that's a good advice. A lot of people don't realise that we can help sort of retrospectively look at our application as well. So that's definitely a good tip. I think other things, sometimes it's worth inquiring about whether they can give you feedback. They may say that they're not able to, or sort of send that in the automated email just to sort of almost not set expectations, but excuse me, providing that you write a sort of polite and well sort of reasoned short email saying, hi, I recently applied for this job and I was unsuccessful in getting to interview stage, or I was unsuccessful in getting past the interview stage. I was wondering whether I might just be able to receive some brief feedback as to why that is, so that I can improve my applications for future jobs at the company or something like that. As long as you don't write it in a demanding or annoyed way, there is a chance that they still won't accept, they won't give you feedback or won't provide anything, which in my opinion is really annoying. I think if you've taken the time, you sort of should get some feedback, but there's nothing to lose. They won't sort of deem you in sort of a bad light. And there's even a chance that, like for example, if you do sort of show that willing and show a bit of politeness, that might just make your name stick in as someone who's interested and keen for the future. So there is nothing to lose. That's not to say you'll definitely get feedback. But I think it also links back to a little bit what Sonny was saying about resilience there in that slide about sort of looking at it and try not to beat yourself up too much about it and look at it critically, but not assume that just because you didn't get through, that it wasn't any good. You know, sometimes, you know, for example, we hire graduate interns, student interns, and you know, we'll have one position and we might get upwards of 50 applications. So we can probably only invite 6 of those to an interview and then ultimately offer it to one person. Now, some of those 50 people will probably have submitted a bad application. Some of those people will have submitted a, you know, a slightly lacking application, and some of those people will have submitted a good or very good application, which just isn't quite as good. So it's sort of looking at critically and thinking, not just, okay, what can I improve upon because that was definitely rubbish, but also what was good and what should I carry forward to the next application. So, you know, as Sonia said, I think rejection is obviously a hard thing to deal with, but trying to use that to sort of tailor future applications and remembering that the experience of writing that will stand you in good stead and not to chuck everything out immediately. Um, can definitely be useful with that. So hopefully, Ella, both your questions have been answered there. If there's anything you'd like to sort of follow up with, you can comment on either of those questions or follow up with us separately. But we'll move on to another question from now, which comes from Farhan, who says, how do you apply speculatively to opportunities not shown on the career job boards or career ads? Sonia, any thoughts?
I'd say obviously I think a lot of people do struggle with speculative applications because there's less guidance with it. But I think finding an email and reaching out to the um, business or company, especially if they're a smaller company, then they might be more likely to get back to you. It definitely makes your name stand out. So then potentially, if they don't have any job opportunities going at the moment, they could then get back to you when they do. So I think reaching out with an email, just wording it really politely, really nicely, or maybe going in if it's a smaller company as well, and speaking to someone in person, because at least then you're getting yourself out there and being memorable. Um, and then also LinkedIn. A lot of people do use LinkedIn, reaching out to employees that have worked there. I know on LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure you can see if someone from the university that you've studied at works there. So then you could reach out to a fellow alumni that works at the company that you'd like to work at, and then you could maybe message them and just be like, "Hey, I would love to work in the role that you have, or in the company that you work for. Do you know?" Maybe we could set up a time to chat and maybe give me some guidance. Just start building those personal connections, especially if it's an alumni of the university. Then you have sort of like a starting point of like shared common ground. Yeah.
Yeah, really good advice. I think following on from that as well, trying to tailor your pitch as well a little bit. So, you know, if you were to just reach out to a load of companies and say, hi, have you got any jobs? Then they're less likely to sort of get back to you. But if, for example, I mean, I don't know what you study and what sort of areas you're interested in, but as an example, you know, if you were an engineering student who was just about to graduate and you had some experience in working in systems, and you were able to reach out to an engineering company that you knew had jobs in those positions and just say that, hi, I'm really interested in working for your company because I like the work you do with systems and I've got lots of experience through internships and my modules, including block X, Y, and Z on systems. Would it be possible to speak to anyone? I've attached my CV and a cover letter. You know, if you can do that, it's that quality over quantity thing. It's unlikely that if you just send out sort of brief, hey, have you got any job style emails that you get much back. But if you do tailor and think about it and think about how to make yourself stand out, then that's definitely something that can work. I can see you asked about LinkedIn as well, but utilizing LinkedIn as well is definitely a good idea. We could probably do a whole hour-long session on speculative applications, and indeed, I think we have in the past. So do keep an eye out for any future ones. I will see as well if we've ever done any online guides or recordings, that sort of thing. But there is lots of information out there. So if you want a bit more advice, do a bit of research, and also you're very welcome to book an appointment with someone at the service to talk about how to go about doing that in a bit more detail. So the next question, as I said, is also from Farhan and is about networking with employees on LinkedIn, and it's specifically about during the applications, and if so, how do you chat with them to boost your application chances? Um, Again, I will pass over to you first, Sonia, if you've got any thoughts on that.
So I suppose what I said before still stands for this question in terms of using the fact that you're a University of Leeds alumni to chat to other alumni on LinkedIn. Because I think you can be really friendly, just message, just be like, hey, like I've just graduated from the University of Leeds. I'm really keen to work at the company that you'll work for. I think in terms of chatting to them to boost your application. You could just ask them for guidance or maybe any advice that they would have when applying to the company or something that might be like ask them, what do you really like about the company? And that could be used during your maybe your interview and just be like, I've spoken to people at the company and they really like this and this is why I'm applying because it's just sounded really exciting and the type of environment that I would like to work in, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, I'll also sound like I'm in danger of repeating myself here, but again, I think it's the being professional about it, not getting in touch with absolutely everyone who works at the company when you've applied there, and not asking in a presumptive manner, but just, saying something along the lines of, hey, um, I'm applying for this position at the company, and again, I've got experience in these areas, and I was just wondering whether you could give me any sort of insight in addition to the information provided in the cover letter, in the job application, so I can tailor it to give myself the best possible chance. Again, you may or may not hear back from them, but providing that you write in a sort of professional and sort of friendly manner, it certainly won't do you any harm. I think another thing that some people find useful to do or comforting or can help them, particularly if they get to interview stage, which does include obviously the application as part of the application process, is looking at who's on the interview panel and just having a bit of a look at their LinkedIn profiles. Partly, I think, just to give yourself that reassurance of, putting a name to a face can be quite helpful, sort of seeing what they're sort of, what they look like. It sounds a bit daft, but it can be a real sort of comfort to actually know who you're going to be talking to and like their age and background and that sort of thing. It's also useful because it gives you a sense of how long they've been at the company or how long they've been in that position at the company, what they might have done beforehand, so that you can tailor your answers and sort of talk about your experiences and that sort of thing in a different light. If you're talking to someone who has been there for, let's say, 6 or 7 years versus someone who's been in the position 2 or 3 months, there might be a very different sort. They might have a different attitude to the role, or still be figuring things out, and may or may not be more welcome to people coming in with new ideas. So I think, yeah, you definitely can, and I think it can be of merit. Be aware that it may not give you any benefit, and to sort of not be perturbed from putting off if you don't hear back from them. And again, as with everything sort of application related, the earlier you can get in touch with them in terms of when the deadline is or your interview or anything like that, um, the more chance you've got of replying. If you sort of message someone 2 days before the closing date and say, hey, I could do with some advice on this, it's, even if they wanted to help out, just it might be that they don't have the time. So the earlier, the better on that front. But thanks for both your questions. And if there's anything you want to follow up with, again, just let us know in the chat or comment on your question or, follow up with us afterwards. We'd be more than happy to talk to you further about it. Haven't got any more questions that have come in on the Q&A just yet, but do feel free to submit any if you do have any. But we'll go to one of the pre-submitted questions that were submitted, which was sort of, I mean, we've covered this a little bit, Sonia, but sort of a question around sort of where else can you look for jobs if you feel like you've exhausted your sort of existing well of sort of vacancies.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, I know they tend to start looking, like on Indeed and stuff like that. But I think a good place to start is My Career. Go on, find vacancies. Like I said, you can tailor your search to specifically what you're looking for. For example, if you're looking specifically for jobs in a certain area, like London, which I know lots of graduates would like to live in London. So My Career is a really good place to start. We also offer exclusive to Leeds job opportunities on My Career. So that is job opportunities that are exclusive to University of Leeds graduates and students. So it's worth having a look on there to see if any of those roles would be of interest to you. And then a favorite one of mine is Prospects, because Prospects are it's just a really good website. It's laid out very clearly, and you can do lots of other stuff on there that's not just searching for jobs. You can have a look at your job profile, have a look what other jobs link to your degree, and they also have a list of job like vacancies that you can go through. The same with target jobs, also different vacancies on there. I think Monster is another one that is quite good. And then also specifically for engineering style students. What's it called, Tom? The
Grad cracker.
grad cracker. That's specifically like engineering roles. I'd also have a look on there. And then equally, for example, let's say you want to live in Leeds or Yorkshire, have a look on Leeds City Council. The same for different councils around the UK. Have a look what jobs they've got going there. So I think that's also quite a good one to use as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as Sonia said, just increasing the amount of places you look and based on how much of an idea you have about sector or location or whatever else, and trying to look for websites specifically linked to those. A couple of really good examples there, but if none of those examples apply to you, just apply that logic to what does make sense. And yeah, there'll be more things you can look at. Prospects as well on the sector guides and job profiles. They've got a lot of sector specific or job specific job boards. Some of those are very specific and might include roles that sort of out of your sort of range at the moment with the amount of experience, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye on. And you might, if nothing else, learn some new places to look and get email alerts. That's also something that's worth making sure that you've got your email preferences set up on these sites, like My Career, for example. You can tailor it so you get jobs that match your interests and sort of what you're looking for sent directly to your inbox. Or if that's not how you work, you can turn those off. But making sure trying to get the systems to do the work for you can be a really good addition as well. But thank you very much for that question as well. We have a couple more questions that have come through, starting with a question from Martha, who says, how long after you graduate can you still apply for graduate roles, internships, etc.? Is there a time limit? Sonia?
Yeah, so if it's a graduate scheme, most will specify. So usually it's up to 2 years after graduation that you can apply for a graduate scheme. But it will specify usually on a graduate scheme application, but like as a general, I think most of them are 2 years after you graduate, you can still apply. And then for graduate roles, I don't think I've ever come across a graduate role vacancy that has specified, but it usually will specify if there's a certain amount of time needed, or like they only want you to have graduated, let's say 2 years prior. But other than that, if you're a graduate, you should be able to apply for a graduate role with no problem. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's all true. And I think, yeah, look at the information provided, and also another thing to bear in mind is that, to an extent, sometimes it's how much you can prove or demonstrate that you want the job and it would benefit you. So, if you were, I don't know your situation, Martha, but, if, for example, you were a few years outside of uni and you're a bit more worried or a bit more self-conscious about applying for these graduate roles, if you can demonstrate that you've got the experiences and the motivations to apply for the role, then even though it's not typically sort of the type of person who might be applying, that might stand you in good stead and make it sort of kind of irrelevant. I think as well, remember sometimes that how the sort of application is presented to the recruiters on the other side of the system, it might not be immediately apparent when you graduated. So, for example, when I shortlist roles at the university, the first thing I see is someone's supporting statement. And unless they specifically mention I'm a graduate of the university from 2025 or whatever, then that won't be the first thing I see. So if I saw a really good application in there that was really well written and matched all the criteria and they really showed their passion for the role, you know, by the time I've realised that they're a graduate from a few years out, they've already got sort of a positive association with it. So yeah, don't be put off from applying to things unless obviously it does specifically say you can. And also think about things in terms of there's a sort of positive and a negative way of looking at it. A negative way is that's annoying. I can't apply for that graduate scheme or that graduate role. But that might be because you've got more experience and you're actually able to apply for sort of permanent roles or slightly higher up the pay grades roles. And so, do bear in mind that it's not necessarily a bad thing if you can't apply for those roles because you're a bit more experienced. So thanks a lot for your question. Really good one. And yeah, don't be sort of put off. And yeah, no problem at all. Thanks, Martha. I believe we've also got some more questions in the Q&A, so just let me switch back to that. Question from May there about, do you have any advice over disclosing a disability? We do have lots of advice, and what I would probably suggest that you do, May, assuming that you have a disability and you're wondering about how to disclose that, I would follow up with us after the session. If you drop us an email at graduatesupport@leeds.ac.uk, which will either already be in the chat or Natalie can put in the chat now. Basically, there's lots and lots of information about disclosing a disability, but without knowing your exact situation, what it is, and the sort of things you're applying for, it's difficult to give you precise advice. I will say that generally, employers are getting better and better and better at sort of putting in place provisions for disabled applicants, whether that be through the application stage or when they start. Generally, it's an individual's choice about whether or not they disclose a disability. There is no right or wrong answer. You're not legally obliged or anything like that to disclose it. And of course, on the other side, it's illegal for employers to discriminate against people because of a disability. So you're under no obligation to, is kind of what makes you feel comfortable. But generally, I think, if we had to say sort of as a general rule, we would probably encourage people to try and feel comfortable about disclosing that disability. But it's probably something that's worth talking to an advisor about in a bit more detail. We do have an advisor at the service we might be able to book an appointment with, who's our sort of disabled student graduate lead. We also have a partnership with an external organisation called Employability. So Employability, all one word with capital A in the middle. And they have loads of really good resources around all this sort of stuff for everything disabled. So yeah, hopefully that's given you a bit of an indication, but it's probably difficult to go into more specific advice without knowing the nature of what it is you want to talk about. But that's definitely something we can follow up with you on a one-to-one basis. Was there anything I've missed there, Sonia?
No, I think you've pretty much covered that. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks a lot for your question, May. And yeah, hopefully hear from you soon. I was wondering how best. So, sorry, last question that we've got at the moment. And we've probably got time for maybe one or two more at a push. So, put any questions in last minute if you do have any. Natalie has dropped our email address in if you want to follow up with us afterwards. But our last question for now is from Nina. As I was wondering how best to navigate the issue of immediate start visas. I've had a lot of things I'm interested in, but I'm currently completing a master's here at Leeds until September. So it seems I'm unable to apply yet. Is it a case of waiting until the summer? Thanks. Well, again, this is one where it's about, reading the information, reading what they say. If you feel confident, getting in touch with employers, and sort of equipping yourself with as much knowledge as you can do. If it is an immediate start vacancy, sorry, you've said, I read vacancies as visas. I'm so sorry, I completely misread that question. Immediate start vacancies. So you're currently completing a master's until September. So it seems you're unable to apply yet. Is it a case of waiting until the summer? Sorry, Nina, I completely misread your question there. The logic still applies. I think it's reading what information is available. Thanks, Nina, for saying not to worry. It's about reading the information that's available, working out, and also getting in touch with the employer. Sometimes there's a difference between what immediate start means. Sometimes when a vacancy is listed and it's immediate start, it means they literally want someone in the building as quickly as possible. Other times it's that they want to get the vacancy out and speak to some people and try and get someone in post, but they're prepared to wait for the right person. So getting in touch with them, again, as with all the advice we've said about when you get in touch with people, you may not hear back. It may not be the answer you're hoping for, but it takes a few minutes to drop them a professionally worded email about it. And sometimes as well, it might say immediate start, but they're kind of actively looking for someone to start a bit later. To give you a real life example, Sonia interviewed for this role last June and started in early September, was it?
Yeah.
And that was because we we wanted someone to do the role and we needed someone to do the role, but actually due to sort of my workload and the team's workload and Sonia not being able to start till September, it actually worked out best for all parties concerned for her to wait and start in September. And it's been a great decision because it's worked out fine, and we've forgotten about that month to 5 weeks where maybe in an ideal world we would have had someone in post. So again, that works out in this instance. There might be other times or other employers who would say, I'm really sorry, we do need someone immediately. I think as well, the closer you get to sort of September, the more flexibility there'll be on that. The closer you get, as you said, wait until the summer. Um, and then there was one other thing I was going to say. Oh yeah, it depends on sort of what your working commitments are and what the rules are. I don't know whether you are an international student or a UK student, but potentially, particularly if you're a UK student, you might be able to work part-time while completing the masters. If you are international, you'd have to check what your visa conditions are. But speaking to the employer about that, is it possible for me to work part-time for a month or two and then move on to full-time from September? That's something else that we've had here. So yeah, do your research and get in touch with the employer and just see what comes of it. Was there anything from your perspective there, Sonia, you thought?
No, I think you've covered most of it, but of course you'll feel a lot more comfortable like applying in the summer because then you know that like come September you'll be able to start. So equally like you can just focus on your masters and you can take that time to focus on your masters and enjoy being a student. And then you know that let's say come June, that's when you really start hammering and your like tailored applications. And it's okay to also have that mindset.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. Yeah, do what's right for you. Don't force it. If you know that you need something very quickly after you graduate, then maybe you need to change your mindset a bit and sort of start applying a bit earlier and start hammering it a bit earlier. If you don't, focus on the masters. It's also worth, it's something we do say to all our students. We encourage you to try and start thinking about it to give yourself a better chance, and be better prepared. But ultimately, you're at uni, you're paying a lot of money for this, and it's something that you will probably do once or twice at most. So focus on getting the most out of that, and then a job will fall into place. It won't fall into place, I'm afraid. You will have to do work to get there, but it will work itself out over time. So it's a good piece of advice from Sonia there.
Yeah, and I suppose if you're, because obviously as a master's student, you have a little bit more flexibility. So maybe this is the time to build up any skills. So having a look at those vacancies that you said you were interested in, is there any skills that they require that you might not feel you have enough experience in? So maybe sign up for a volunteering position or get involved in a society as you're still a student at the university. I think that could be something you could do in the meantime, so that then when you do come to seriously start applying a little bit closer to the time where you finish your masters, you'll have all the skills that you feel more confident expressing.
Yeah, another really good bit of advice there.
Um,
Okay,
I
go on,
think there's
sorry.
one more question
Was
from
there
May
one more question?
underneath.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes. So we'll make this our final question because we're nearly at half past, but do feel free to follow up with us by email. Yeah, sorry, mate, this one came through a little while ago and I did see this and then I missed it. So how much of a job's requirements do you have to meet before applying? I'm often put off because I don't feel like I fit a job advert exactly. Sonia, I'm going to pass that on to you first.
Yeah. Um, so I mean, it really just depends. For example, I'm someone that studied law, so I wouldn't be applying to like a computing or like very techie sort of job role. So I think there's a certain level of like you'll know whether this job is for you. Um, but if you're just a little bit unsure because maybe your experiences don't align exactly, that's where what I mentioned earlier about transferable skills really comes in. You don't have to have the exact experience to be able to apply for a job. If if they're looking for somebody who has great problem solving or communication skills, have you developed that skill maybe at a job working? at a bar or at a restaurant. And then it's just the way that you word it, talking about, customer service and organization and problem solving. Did you have to deal with any difficult customers or problems of stock? I don't know, like lots of other examples that could be used. But yeah, so I think it's a lot about transferable skills in that case. If you maybe don't feel that you meet the requirements, equally, if you're not sure, you can always come in as well, and we can go over it with you. Um, but equally, look at the job description and genuinely think about whether this is a job that you could do. Do you feel that if they gave you the role, you would be, you know, comfortable and confident doing the things that they would require you to do? Or do you need a little bit more experience? For example, maybe you don't feel as confident in like Excel or Microsoft. That is a skill that you could develop, for example, using LinkedIn Learning. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, lots of really good advice there. I think again, it really depends. If you apply for a job which is incredibly competitive and there's only one position, then it might be that they go for someone who does meet all the criteria. Equally, if you're going for a job that isn't as popular and it hasn't got as many applicants, then it may not matter as much. I think Sonia's advice there about thinking outside the box and also looking to develop any gaps you have, using the same sort of experiences to match different things. So, think about your academic work as well. Um, but yeah, I think definitely don't be put off from applying for a job because you don't meet every single criteria on there. There's no exact science because, as I said, it does depend. But I think, as a general rule, sort of if you feel like you match sort of the majority of things on there, say if there's like 10 criteria they want you to talk about, and you match 7 or 8 of them, I would say that's definitely worth going for. It also depends on how long the application is going to be and how passionate you feel about it. If it's something that you absolutely love the sound of, then maybe you stick in an application, even if you are 1 or 2 things short. If it's something that you think, do you know what, I'm not sure I'm that bothered about it, and I'm short on things, maybe you don't. So thinking about it that way as well. But yeah, there's no exact answer to your question, but I think try not to be put off because you don't meet every criteria, and you'd be surprised, kind of probably how few people technically match every single criteria on a job. It's about being a bit flexible about your understanding of things. And also, you know, if you, a lot of applications are on scores, and they'll score each criteria sort of 1 to 3. So if you can match some of the things really well, it might not matter as much that you don't match other things as much or at all. So hopefully that's answered your question, May. But I think we will sort of call it a day there. Thank you very much for attending, everyone. Natalie has put the feedback survey link in the chat. It'd be so helpful if you could fill that in. We haven't been doing these events aimed at graduates for very long, and so it really helps us to sort of find out what worked and what we can improve on. So if you have got 2 minutes just to fill that in, that'd be really much appreciated. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Sonia, and thank you for the nice comments in the chat. And yeah, do get in touch with us if you need anything else, and we will send you the recording of this soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you for participating.